What is going on, Neon Nation? Long time no see. We finally have some meaningful Cyberpunk 2077 updates straight from the source regarding patch 1.2. Some videos released highlighting some of these fixes and an overview of what the biggest patch will look like, as well as some of your guys' thoughts on this update from CD Projekt Red, and if this can help catalyze some sort of positive traction for CD Projekt and Cyberpunk 2077. Before we get into that, big shout out to NordVPN for again sponsoring a segment on the channel. NordVPN is one of the most trusted VPN or virtual private networks when it comes to meaningfully protecting your data and disguising your online identity and IP address, increasing peace of mind in a day and age where everything revolves around online interfaces. As the digital world progresses, so too do meaningful personal cybersecurity threats, from hackers looking for any advantages to penetrate your devices and obtain your data. Just like some of the best netrunners in the Cyberpunk universe, the threat of having a modern-day Alt Cunningham is stronger than ever, and with that comes the benefit of the award-winning Nord. Protect your data even on the go with NordVPN, which features double data encryption for increased anonymity and over 5,500 plus lightning speed servers in 60 countries across the globe. With no data logging and 24/7 customer support, you can feel comfortable Nord will have your back whenever you need it. Nord has extended a special offer to you guys, Neon Nation, so follow the link in the description or the pinned comment and go to nordvpn.com/theneonarcade or use code theneonarcade to get a 2-year plan plus a free month at my special discounted rate. Getting into the news here, CD Projekt Red finally broke their prolonged silence recently after mentioning patch 1.2 would be delayed till the end of March and after the studio was compromised in a hack, and source code to their titles was allegedly sold off to the highest bidder. There were some other reports of this causing mass lockouts of employee PCs, making it an incredibly damaging attack, which shifted CDPR's focus to their IT department and damage control. Now it seems like the worst is over in this event, and CDPR has taken a Twitter mentioning, quote, "What's new in Night City?" and 54 News has uncovered what will soon change in the City of Dreams. Our experts included an analysis to keep you informed about upcoming developments. I'm Julian Jordan, and here's what I have for you today. Now obviously CDPR has chosen to showcase their patch notes with in-lore anchor Gillian Anderson, instead of having a sad-faced developer list off the patch notes in a hostage-style video, which I think is a good decision in this case, and CDPR does make light of some of their shortcomings, so again I do like how they're approaching this. I'm also going to mention that this is just a taste of patch 1.2, and not every single fix is featured in this release. For the first point, this goes on to say, NCPD Quick Response Team too quick? You heard right. The NCPD response team is under fire from concerned citizens and corporations alike. The rapid deployment tactics they recently adopted forced mercenaries to think twice about pointing a gun at anyone, but will now be adjusted to give the other side some breathing room. I'm going to go ahead and play the video here and then we'll go ahead and discuss it. So in this clip, effectively what I'm seeing is that the cops aren't going to be spontaneously appearing out of thin air to come and apprehend you, and their spawn points are more reasonably far away. I really wish they would have shown this off on top of a closed building or something, or even had a subsequent clip showing this off, because I think the most jarring example of why this was a problem was when officers were spawning out of thin air on top of each other around players who would confine themselves to high up small spaces. Regardless, yes, this was pretty much needed, although there's no mention if the AI will be able to chase you in the car, and there was definitely no portrayal of cops coming in on AVs or cars, although me personally, I was not expecting this at all. CDPR goes on to give some additional lore reasons as to why this is a possibility, and I'll keep them on screen for you guys to read, but we also have a quote from the lead gameplay designer and technical coordinator at CD Projekt Red on what's happening here. They mention, quote, "This is an important step in addressing the behavior of the police in our game. It should decrease the problem of NPCs spawning behind players' backs, and create an impression that it takes time for the police to arrive at a crime scene after the crime had been reported. We've also added a recon drone unit to create the feeling of the police assessing the situation." Now they did mention this is an important step in addressing the behavior of police in our game, so maybe this is their first step in a series of multiple steps. I'm hoping that's the case, because this one, although needed, isn't really hugely impactful, but again, first step. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one, and we're going into point 2. Now in the next clip we have CDPR showcases a new steering sensitivity feature to address the complaints on driving in Cyberpunk 2077. Here's that comparison video between patch 1.12 and patch 1.2. Again, more lore and in-world reasons as to why this is, and the senior vehicle programmer at CDPR mentions, quote, "Analyzing feedback on our driving model suggested a lot of players were having issues with the speed of the steering. Most complaints came from players using keyboards on PC or were on platforms with lower frame rates, and centered around how hard it was to keep cars off the sidewalks. We've added a steering sensitivity slider to the options menu. This allows the steering speed for all vehicles and all input devices to be slowed down without affecting the maximum turn radius. When experiencing lower frame rates, our cars were harder to control. We traced this to some code that wasn't handling extreme changes in frame rate properly. The steering speed is now very consistent from 20 to 60 plus FPS. Lastly, we looked at a bunch of tweaks to individual cars and adjusted some of them that were too twitchy and lower frame rates. In 1.2, there's also an unstuck feature, which will help you get your wheels back on the road if you do get caught on some piece of geometry in the map, which will stall your vehicle. Again, the dev goes on to say, quote, "There are cases where our vehicles can get beached or high-centered on stuff in Night City. We have now added an unstuck feature that kicks in when you're accelerating and not moving. While holding down the accelerator, you can now rock the vehicle forward or back, or rotate it left or right." Another big issue in Night City are apparently neuroprocessors, and a glitch causing citizens to dodge and bounce around without warning, which is obviously an in-world tie to the lack of keybinds and the double tap to dodge feature that I mentioned a couple times in my initial reviews of Cyberpunk 2077. A tools programmer at CDPR explains that, quote, "Dodge on double tapping a movement key can be turned off in the control settings. The dodge action can still be performed by double tapping the crouch action key. It should now be more feasible to move WASD bindings around the keyboard. There still remains a few bindings that need to be addressed, but these should be fixed in upcoming patches." Now moving on, let's get into some of the responses. Now a lot of the responses on the forums and in my tweets were actually pretty positive. And before getting into my personal thoughts on this, let's go through what you guys had to say via my Twitter thread. The Notorious 4 mentions, quote, "I really liked how they presented the patch in universe, and I'm really happy that they are assessing the cops." Velral says, quote, "We're slowly getting there. The actual patch notes will be even more. I'm confident CDPR can fix this step by step. Maybe it takes a few years, but this game will get better." Robot Xander says, quote, "Liking the format. They have a goodwill deficit with most of the community, I think, and some ways to go to make that up. I'm pretty easygoing though, and I've been hyped since 2013. I was loving the game, but gave it a break for the updates due to the interwebs." Just Shane says, quote, "To be honest, the changes are too insignificant so far. The police is still the same. They added a slider for driving and set new things for dodging. These are not the main problems in the game." Sly Parkour responds to this saying, quote, "Agreed, kinda underwhelming patch than they made it out to be. Wasn't expecting the whole game to change, but at least something more impactful." And to be honest guys, this is kind of where I'm at the moment. I know these are not all the changes in patch 1.2, and there's likely much more than that, but the showcase to me was very underwhelming. If CDPR is saving some sort of grand reveal, I think most of us are beyond that at this point. Show your most impactful changes now instead of later. If these are the biggest elements going forward and everything else that follows is less substantial, I'm gonna be pretty disappointed. We already have the expectation of necessary optimization and bug squashes. That's one thing, but showcasing small quality of life changes as the one spearheading your latest patch is at this point for me just not enough. Obviously, I'm personally going to wait and reserve judgment on this patch, and yeah, it's the most communication CDPR has had in a while, but I think I'm more impressed with the presentation of the patch notes than the actual notes themselves. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.